From the Middle is a founding member of Hod Pods Media. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode number 292 of From the Middle. We are three middle class guys living in the middle of America in the middle chapters of our lives with points of view somewhere in the middle. We have a ton of fun in this episode this week. So many of them are crap, but this one is great. And we had a lot of fun talking about, we had a few cleaning questions, actually. Do you dread items on your to-do list? We talked sweet treats, some things that we passed along to our kids we're not so proud of. And Corey finally watched the Oscars. We hope you'll love this episode. Check it out.
Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Okay, I have a question for you both. And
I have sarcasm.
That might it might out myself. People might not want to come to my house anymore for parties, but I'm going to ask.
I'll still be your friend.
Thanks. So let's say you have some fresh bread. You get some fresh bread out. You're going to slice the bread to make a sandwich. You pull out a clean knife. You slice the bread. You do nothing else with the bread. You don't butter it. You don't do anything yet. The knife that you just used only touched the bread. Do you scrub that knife with soap, or do you just wipe it with a towel and put it back?
You wipe it with a towel?
Well, not like a dirty towel, but do you just wipe it like a clean, dry towel and just?
My point with the towel was that's an extra step that I've never even considered.
Oh, you don't
it gets if there's crumbs on it, it gets this motion
off. Just
and then put back. Yeah. So
I might give it one of the old this side and that side of my jeans.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, you guys are dirtier than even I was. So
no kidding. Do you want to know it's wearing a different knife right now, but pocket knives on a lot of dudes. My pocket knife has been used to cut and feed myself food, and not just bread, meat and fruit, and just wiped on the jeans until it's dry and not sticky anymore and put back and ready to go for next time. So I'm not prepping other people's food with that knife.
Sure.
But for me personally, no. And I feel like that's got to be relatively universal. If you're just cutting some bread and nothing's really getting on the knife, you can just put it back.
And then there's a line, if you start cutting cheese, I'm gonna wash the knife
sure.
But I'm just thinking a plain loaf of bread as a good starter example.
Yeah,
that feels pretty neutral.
Cut your bagel, cut your English muffin.
Yeah,
cut a package open.
Yeah,
it's not getting washed after those things.
As soon as you start introducing other flavors, that feels like where I draw the line. So if it's like a chocolate chip muffin, and there might
it's got chocolate chip goo on it. Probably.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. As soon as you introduce other flavors, if I took the same knife and put butter on the bread with it, I'm washing it now. There's butter.
Of course.
There's butter involved.
How about like a coffee stir spoon?
Yeah.
You're gonna stir some creamer. Do you even give it a quick rinse, or just a couple?
Well,
kinking on the edge of the mug, and then
back in the drawer with it.
Either back in the drawer. Does that just sit next to your coffee station as your coffee?
That kind of becomes my daily spoon.
Okay.
At that point, I will leave it. We have what we call the coffee counter, and it's the portion of 2-foot wide counter that is between a hallway and our refrigerator, and that is where coffee grinder and water kettle and things like that are. And so that counter isn't big enough to get used for anything else. And so that's where my coffee cup lives, is on that counter. And if I'm mixing something into tea or something else into that cup, that spoon goes right back on that counter. When I'm done drinking, my cup goes back there, spoon goes in it. And that way, for the rest of the day, I have a little mixing spoon of my own.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle that. Never back in the drawer though. After coffee, I wouldn't. Do
Yeah.
that.
Maybe we're just fancy enough to have like dedicated coffee spoons, like by the coffee machine, that aren't like our normal spoons we would use for other things. And so I will say, and I'm not just saying this because because we're recording and there's going to be evidence of this. If I know that there's a party or something, people are coming over, we just had Finley's birthday, I'm going to wash those with soap and water before. But if it's just me, we have one of those little drying racks by our sink. If
Yeah.
I'm stirring coffee with a spoon, it's getting a pretty quick rinse, and then it's getting thrown on that little drying tray. And then I'm going to
Okay.
just use it. It's not going back in a drawer, but I'm not going to use soap. When I've just stirred coffee, rinse with a little water, throw it on the thing to dry off, leave it for another day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little different from that. So that'll, if like at the end of the day, that spoon goes into the sink or dishwasher. So,
yeah. And it always comes back to, there's always going to be a line. Like as soon as you say like, oh yeah, somebody got out of the thing of Ben and Jerry's and then I grabbed it and took a couple bites of ice cream with it and rinsed it off. Well, you kind of lost me now. But if it's just like if it's not something chunky or sticky and it's just a little liquid on it that I can quickly rinse off, that feels okay. That feels safe for me in my house.
I will always have fond memories of Dylan and I's grandpa, who leaves a white plastic spoon next to his coffee maker with one neatly folded paper towel, folded in half or quartered. And then when he stirs his coffee, that white plastic spoon gets placed on that paper towel. So it's got like weeks worth of coffee stains, and he uses it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So funny. Here's a little inside insight to my crazy. You know, the old shave and a haircut. Dun, dun. You know, that like some families have that as their secret knock that nobody will ever find out.
Right.
Every time I make a coffee, I have to do that with the spoon after I've stirred. And if I miss, so if it's like ding, 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 like I missed on that second to last one, I got to start over. Like I don't like to throw around misdiagnosed OCD claims, but there are some little things like that where I'm like, I can't proceed with this day until I've successfully dinged out shave and a haircut.
I think so. Possibly a qualifier for that. A follow-up question would be, let's say that the phone has been ringing and it's a very important phone call and you had to do the shave and a haircut thing really quick, but then you skipped something and now you might miss the phone call. Are you good? There's three options here. You either miss the phone call to do the shave and a haircut again, option one. Option two, you just forget about it and move on with your life. Option three, you take the phone call, but as soon as it's done, you're thinking about shaving a haircut. You go back to the coffee mug and the spoon and do it again. At that point, you come back to it.
Miss the phone call because I think it has to be successfully completed before I start my first sip.
Okay.
And if I go take that call, chances are I'm going to sip, which will render the whole thing ruined.
And somehow be the first person to choke on coffee.
I love this. I love this idea that you're having your own Andy Bernard break me off a piece of that fancy feast kind of thing. Or like he's got to finish singing the song in the elevator with Pam. But I just imagined a scenario where you answer the phone and said, hold on. And then you fake cough loud enough to disguise the final two taps with your spoon because only you need to know that it happened. And the cough is louder than the spoons. It feels like you've completed the melody in your head. And now you can say, sorry, just had to cough. Anyways, and you've put them on hold, so to speak, to finish.
It feels weird to even externalize this excuse me, because it's gotten to the point with my family now where everybody knows I'm doing this and nobody's talking about it. And I literally will have the thought, should something ever happen to me, they're going to miss that. They're going to miss that shaving a haircut on the side of the mug every day.
Your thought of your grandpa's plastic spoon and the crusty paper towel.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, Dad used to do this thing.
Yeah.
Grandpa used to do this thing.
Someday when they're older, they'll marry somebody who will do it unbeknownst to them. And the first time they do, they're going to just be sobbing.
Yeah, that's the romantic comedy. Like that's how they knew he was the one.
I was just going to say, like, someday Lily is going to like be dating some very nice young man who does that on his coffee cup. And she's going to be like,
that's when I knew.
Keeper.
If only he washed his spoons, you know? So the reason that whole thing...
He's like Uncle Dylan.
Yeah.
Also, so we've got...
No one's ever drinking coffee at my house again, or you cutting bread. The reason this came up, so the other day, I was thinking about my clean to messy ratio inside the house. And in video games, it's your kill death ratio. So how many people do you kill for how many times do you die? And people brag about that.
Okay.
And so it's like my KD ratio is 5-1 on whatever, Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever you play. And so kids will talk about that. Well, because I have that reference baked into my head from gaming for a long time, I was thinking about my clean to messy ratio, which feels really strong. So it would be hard to go every chore for every chore to actually do a number, but I'm thinking like a percentage, like plus or minus 0 of my how many messes do I make within the boundaries of my own house versus how many do I clean up. And so there's no inherent criticism of the other people in my household for this, but let's be honest. There's going to be in every household, you're either you're contributing or you're detracting from the clean messy ratio in this case. And I feel like I'm a net positive on that one.
Is this per day, per marriage, per adult life?
You can do whatever you want. But I'm thinking sort of like month over month, year over year, generally speaking. In any given day, sure, it could swing one way or the other. But I feel like I'm picking up a lot more pieces of trash and boxes than I'm putting down, if you know what I mean. Like,
okay.
That's so I feel even if it's only a shave of a point towards the cleaner side, I feel confident my clean to messy ratio is higher than lower. What do you guys think for your households? I don't know why Zoom is making me raise my hand on this. I'm not raising my hand.
AI saw what you were doing.
Did I do a thing? Maybe AI is telling me to shut up with it.
Yeah. I think you have something turned on that the rest of us
Are you
don't.
Elon Musking it over here?
Nope.
Okay.
It's not a gesture that I do.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to say I'm a net positive. But I will admit there are chores and or areas that I treat like a neutral, like this doesn't count because you said you will do the dishes.
Yeah. With the exception of not my job.
Yeah. Or like we've talked about on the podcast before, like especially when you have really small kids, there are things that you just stop cleaning up because you're like, there's no point. This is going to be messy again. So I've taken that off of the list.
Yeah, but that's not part of your ratio necessarily. Other than it would be positives in the one column, but they wouldn't be negatives in the other column.
Like I used to alphabetize DVDs and keep kids DVDs with kids DVDs and adult DVDs with not adult DVDs. Grown up. Nah, that's worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I was just like, you know what? Despicable Me is in the Die Hard case, and Dora the Explorer is in Star Wars Episode 4 case. So I'm just done with all this. So I'm still going to say net positive.
I think I'm absolutely net positive. I think that there are areas that I don't care for as much. things that I don't do. My wife and I are very different in this way that I like things to look very neat and put together. And like I seriously feel better, have a better day. My mood is better when I walk into a room um that that looks tidy and organized and everything is where it should be. Um she is like she's not a germaphobe, but she's like that kind of in the germaphobe sense. And so like where I'm not so much like dusting surfaces and cleaning walls and that sort of thing. Uh I don't care so much about that kind of cleaning. Like I don't care about, you know, fixed the washing machine, for example, like a couple months ago. And so I had it pulled out away from the wall and I cleaned back there only because I knew my wife would have wanted me to, not because Kendall normally would have cleaned back there. Like this is the opportunity to clean back behind the washing machine. I normally would not clean behind the washing machine. My wife would have cleaned behind the washing machine. And so I did that. It also means that if there's like smudges on the counter or something like that, that I can get really quickly by just like buffing it with my shirt sleeve, that's what I'll do. She wants to like Lysol the thing sometimes. So,
Well, let's factor in our first query, right? Like
Yeah.
for every knife I'm not dirtying
right.
by cutting the bread and putting it back, am I making more dirty knives than I'm keeping knives clean
Mm.
ish?
Either we
Penalties offset? What is the
either far and away we are the exceptions to the rule, or people are going to listen to this and say you're all full of it. Because there's no way all three of you, you're like, we're all cleaner than we are.
I texted Cher. We'll see what she says.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. And you know, at some point, I feel like this is a thing that's hard to really go into detail about, because house rules on what's clean. What constitutes a clean house at one is very different than another. Is leaving a spoon on the drying board by the sink considered clean? Or is that still a mess because it's visual clutter? Like, it's going to vary wildly by household. But the fact that we all three still think our clean to messy ratio is net positive is maybe suspects.
I got a reply. I'm going to read it without self-editing.
Okay.
Okay.
I love you so much. But in
Starting off
common
good.
areas, you do not clean up more than you leave messes on a daily basis. If it's only your area, you keep things clean. You then randomly have big bursts of organizing. You then give everything in that space order. Example, the garage, and expect us all to care for it pristinely. However, I clean up almost every night or morning from you. Cans, trash in the living room, blankets left out, socks, dirty dishes, etc. You leave a trail.
Well, so she's saying common areas versus your areas. How many rooms? How many more rooms in the house are common areas versus rooms that you would consider your?
Wait, she just piled on.
Oh boy. She's been waiting to say these things, man. And
I'm so
said,
so glad
hey,
you asked.
you know that list of things you've been keeping in your head? I want to hear it. That's what just happened.
You had Case come down to the basement, a space that you oversee, just a couple of days ago. You had him get out of bed because he didn't put the remotes away. You care about your office, your side of the bed, the garage, and the shed. Everything else, you don't leave big messes, but I clean up after you. Always feels a bit ironic when I'm tidying up after you each day, smiley face.
Wow.
I asked, I got an answer.
Wow.
Well, I think Corey's ratio just went red. That's what I'm hearing. And not a slight red, maybe a firm red.
All right. Busted.
There you go. Well, look, if we were being honest with ourselves, like I said, the idea that all three of us felt like
Right. So
green was a stretch.
that's why I did that. I had to keep us honest.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm confident, but I can also send a text and
Unrelated. Do you guys get like meeting or call dread? So like dread is way too strong of a word. So is anxiety. So I won't say that. Even for good calls, like let's say your family is going to do a fun little family call to plan grandpa's retirement party, or I got on a call over the weekend with some guys. I'm super excited. I'm going to be doing a Colorado camping trip for a week this summer. The call was to plan the camping trip and discuss, like, hey, high level itinerary. What supplies do we want to bring? How are we going to plan? Who's going to do meals? And I got like a little, the call was at 6:30 in the evening on a Saturday. There's nothing going on. It was the only thing in my day. But something about it, I was like, even tonight for the podcast, I felt it a little bit. I was like, I got that call later. It's not that it's an obligation. I love hanging out with you guys. The conversation is always fun. But I just get a little like, a little vibraty about it. Do you guys feel that? Work calls for sure. That's an easy like thing. But even for like positive things, do you experience this or is that just me?
I missed the first part of that because I can't multitask, and I was also texting my wife.
Do you get a little bit anxiety is too strong a word. Do you get just a little vibraty about calls that you have scheduled or meetings, even if that thing is a good thing? Like recording the podcast. I was talking about a call that I had on Saturday where I was planning a camping trip we're doing this summer in Colorado with a couple other guys. Only one of the guys I don't know at all, and the other two I didn't know really well. And I was like, I got that call later. Is it something about like you got to be on a little bit, maybe, or like it's just something in your day when you could otherwise just be in your PJs?
Like you feel like you have to perform, or you're worried that you're ill prepared, or
no, it's not an ill prepared, and it's not a performing. It's just like you're just aware that you got to do that call, even if it's a good call.
And so your world seems maybe dissonant until that call's done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a little, I'll feel better when it's over. It was all awesome. It was fun.
Yeah.
But like,
is it the idea that it's some level of disruption to what you would prefer your day to be? Like it's a thing you have to consider and plan around, even if it's a positive thing.
If you have a Sunday that there's nothing going on except for a kids sports awards banquet at 6:30, you love your child. You want to celebrate your child's success. And also, you would rather stay in your pajamas and watch a lot of television.
Yeah. So I think I don't think I experience exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
But it does put into my mind the idea of, oh, I'm so busy. And so now it's like if there is a kids sporting event that's like and takes up an hour and a half of our time, like at any point, like let's say early in the morning on Saturday, and my wife schedules something for the family Saturday afternoon, my first thought is, don't you know we have a game? Instead of like, actually, yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be fine. So I have that. And then like, I sometimes, depending on how closely things are scheduled or how much we have going on that day, I don't feel good about the next thing until the first thing's over.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Let's handle something else.
Yeah.
I don't think of it in a linear fashion quite the way I should.
Okay.
I was trying to think of a good example of something positive that would get in the way. of having a totally free day.
We're planning our grandpa's birthday party for
Yep.
April.
Yep.
Let's say Dad says, "Hey guys, let's do a call on Saturday at 7 to talk about who's going to do what for grandpa's party." But you got nothing else on that day.
Yeah.
You're just like, I
Yeah.
want to. I'm excited about it. It'll be good to see smiling faces on the Zoom. And also, like, you're a little fluttery because you got that call later.
Yeah, that's a good example. I think I feel the same way, and I'm sure it's no doubt we're brothers, and something about how we were raised makes us feel that way. I very much am anything that I know that's pending that feels like a have to do and not a want to do. And even the nature of a planning call or something that is generally about a positive thing. If something is ambiguous or it's a preparation to the thing I want to do, but not the thing I want to do, all of that makes me feel, and this is a me problem. I'm going to start by saying this is unreasonable and it's a me problem.
This is why we're here. This is what we're here to discuss. This is good. Let's keep it going.
It's really hard for me to feel like I can enjoy my day if there's anything in the way of me doing what I want to do. It's really hard. You could have a Saturday where the only thing I need to do, I'm going to pick something really silly, like go drop something off at the post office and get gas on the way home. It takes what, 20 minutes? In my head, my day isn't mine anymore because I have stuff I have to do. And so it doesn't matter if it's silly. This is a me problem. I'm not saying that's a rational take.
Nope.
That's a Dylan problem. But it's hard. Once I get home and comfortable again, maybe I'll feel fine. And I'm not saying I don't handle it maturely. What I'm saying is in my head, I'm going, day's ruined.
You know, before we had kids and after kids for a while, and then especially kind of peaked, I think, during the COVID couple of years, I had always had this habit of like getting these urges to just go out and drive, listen to the radio, be by myself in that way, driving around often at night and killing time that way. And for a while there, like my wife saw this about me and wanted to take care of me and didn't want me to feel guilty about doing that. And so she would start asking me, "Hey, do you think you can run to Meyer and do this or whatever?" And then it occurred to me that like that's kind of ruining it. Like I need to have nothing to do. Like
what is that?
Don't give me a task.
Yeah.
Like I'll be back in 30 minutes. Like I want nothing to do.
Yeah, I'll do it with a good attitude, but inside I'm not happy about it.
Yeah. Well, outside sometimes I wasn't happy about it.
Well, maybe both.
What
I love
is
Amy
that?
so much.
Like, man.
I'm starting to realize how understanding of a woman she actually truly is. Because
well,
of
and
this
here's the
conversation.
thing:
This is good.
because I can completely understand the point of view and how it feels rational as an adult to say, I don't want to do 10 things in one evening. I want to spread them out to make it easier, because it would be reasonable to say, instead of cleaning out my entire closet, why don't I just grab 5 or 10 hangers at a time and look at them in a few minutes and go through it? I'll just leave a bag there and I'll throw stuff in there I'm going to donate. That's reasonable. But that's not how my brain works. So
your brain would rather.
My brain is going, if I do that, it's going to ruin a portion of my day that I don't want to spend doing that. I'd rather spend 7 hours cleaning the closets and not think about it again for 2 years.
Yeah.
Than to think about doing 5 or 10 minutes worth every couple days. That feels awful inside.
Is that the same as carrying every Kroger bag on your arm?
I think so.
Inside?
It could be painful and you could lose groceries on the way in.
You're cutting off circulation?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not coming back for a second trip. Oh, the trunk needs clothes? That's got to be somebody else. I've paid my due.
Hope it's not winter and there's not bears because I'm not going back out there.
Send a kid. That's what children are for.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. This feels like a great place to take a quick pause, see how we feel about that thing we have to do later, and hear some words from some of our friends in Odd Pods Media.
Hey, this is Grab and Brisket Podcast. Join us every Monday where we talk about the latest trends in barbecue, interviews with world top pitmasters, celebrity cooks,
Ooh, like Wee Man from Jackass.
and musicians.
Like Rich O'Toole?
So check us out. We do beer reviews, barbecue fails.
So many fires.
Dude, a lot of people just burn their houses down for no reason.
We also talk about cocaine hippos versus meth gators,
Learn how to make some tailgate gravy.
altercations with Texas Rangers.
People throwing Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, so check out grabthebrisket.com for podcast info, viral social media posts, and so much more.
If you listened to the first half, which you should have, Kendall and I also got responses.
Who
So
listens to the second half only of anything?
That's a very good point.
I didn't say it was, I was saying something intelligent. It was just words.
Yeah, it's for everyone else looking around and
Yeah.
being like, "Hey, where'd everybody go?" And it's like,
Imagine the shame that one person must feel that was like, oh crap, I just cut to the middle to see what shows they're watching.
yeah,
Well, now they know they should go back.
exactly. So, for those of you who didn't listen in the first half, we we have asked our spouses if we're a net positive or negative in the clean to mess ratio. Positive, to clarify a question my wife had, meaning that you are cleaning up more than you are contributing to mess.
Yes.
And my wife said, definitely in the positive, you clean more than you make. Or does that make you negative? Regardless, you clean more messes than you make by a large margin.
Large margin. Bravo.
That is my wife's response.
I got a yes confirmation as well. So
Okay.
I think we can all just shrug and say, those darn kids. They just
That's
make so many messes, and Kendall and I
Living
work so
quick
hard to
as a
clean it up, and Corey just walks around tossing socks and underwear and Red Bull cans around the house.
we had the conversation just this evening of like the excuse of they're just kids doesn't work because they're just kids, and we are parents who it is our job to make sure they don't stay this way.
Yeah.
And so like I'll pick up for them sometimes, but when I do, they're going to know that I did.
Yep.
And I'm going to call them back downstairs because they left a water bottle on a table that they're not supposed to be leaving a water bottle. Like I'll do that too.
Yeah.
Even though they're just kids.
Yep.
It's never going to happen, but I have a bucket list dream of one day doing an open mic, like trying out some material, like some stand up, because I'm such a fan. And one of the things I'm like trying to figure out how to articulate in the form of like structured joke telling is how I feel like our dad used to clean up. And it would be for him to just pick up the object and go, "Whose is this?" And then we would come and get it. And he goes, "Either get that off the stairs or I'm throwing it away. Either take that off the coffee table or I'm throwing it away." Like he didn't actually clean anything. He just directed traffic.
That is good parenting, is what that
And like held up objects and goes, whose army tank is this? Whose G.I. Joe tank is this? Whose video game controller? Whose t-shirt? And that's how he cleaned.
Absolutely.
And
We
I
have
find
a
myself
standing rule.
I find myself
and
doing the same thing now. So it's
we have
all,
a standing rule in our minivan that if the day comes, when the day comes that I clean out the van, I'm throwing everything away. And so if it got left on the floor, if you're looking for your little bouncy ball or your yo-yo or whatever it might be, I probably actually threw it away because it got left in the van. So
Yep. If a
So
shop
that's a
vac
thing.
can pick it up, it's gone. You know what I mean?
yeah.
speaking of kids, it's about that time of year, I think, if my thinker is working correctly, for Girl Scout cookies to go on sale again. Do you guys like Thin Mints?
Mm.
Do you
I do
know?
like Thin Mints.
I don't know if this is a test market Columbus thing, but Wendy's has a Thin Mint Frosty?
That they do.
I tried to get one.
It's a fancy swirly one too, isn't it?
Yeah.
From what I've seen in pictures.
There's a Frosty at the entrance. There's a Frosty. There's a Wendy's at the entrance to our neighborhood, which means there's a Frosty at the entrance to my neighborhood. And I have tried the orange creamsicle. I have tried the raspberry one they had in the summer. Anytime they come up with a funky flavor, I try it. I also, as a gift, like to get people for Christmas the Frosty key tags, which gets you free Junior Frosties for a year. They say with the purchase of another item, but few Wendy's actually enforce this. So, because they're like, who's going to go to the trouble of waiting through the drive-through just for a free extra small Frosty anyway? I tried the Thin Mint Frosty tonight for the first time. You're right, Kendall. It's not crushed up Thin Mints poured into a Frosty. No, no, no. This is like chocolate syrup that has crushed up Thin Mints in the syrup, very finely chopped, that are then, twisted into a Frosty. It's the hands down the best non-regular Frosty they've ever had. So good. Go get yourself one.
That sounds even better than what I had in my mind on what it could be.
Yeah, it's not like a Oreo McFlurry, bits of the cookie in the Frosty. No, it's swirled in the syrup.
Wow, I was thinking like it was just going to be like a mint flavored chocolate syrup, but
No.
there's
No.
I like it.
It is so good. Does it also feel weird to call chocolate syrup chocolate sauce?
A little bit.
Yes. Yeah, that feels a little weird.
I've heard people call it that. And I feel like sauce needs to be savory, but that's not true either. As soon as I said it, that's not true. There are sauces that can be sweet, I guess.
I think the threshold for when that becomes not weird is, do you have wrinkles and is your hair gray? And as soon as those are both true, sauce doesn't feel weird anymore. But for anyone that's probably under 60, sauce feels odd.
You know, and while we're on the topic, using gravy for things that I don't feel like should be gravy, right? So like a pan sauce is a pan sauce. Some people will call that a gravy. Italians and their Sunday sauce, you always hear about, or no, gravy. Some people like, there's Italians that will call bolognese sauce a gravy. I know, right? That's how I feel
about that. I mean, I guess the question with that kind of thing, when you're talking sauces and gravy, do you wash the spoon after you stir it? That might determine whether it's gravy or, quote, just a sauce. I really want to try that Wendy's Thin Mint thing. I went to get one the other day.
Did the gravy stir spoon touch my mouth? If so, I wash it. And the answer is yes.
Do we know if that's just a Columbus test market thing, or is that across
I don't know.
chain?
That's a great question. I tried
I'll feel badly for our non-Central Ohio listeners if they find
that's a good point. I don't think about that. I think Wendy's corporate is still in Columbus, and so we get more testings.
Did you hear In-N-Out? Their headquarters is moving to Tennessee. They're tired of all this nonsense going on in California.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah. So maybe that means that there will be In-N-Outs closer to us.
I heard they closed their first store like ever in Oakland or something like that for obvious reasons.
Hey, let me bring something back. Fact check from the middle. Check.
I heard something and then thought it was debunked. And now I don't know if it was this that I'd heard about or, oh no, it was you or somebody had shared a photo of there's a construction site and somebody put a coming soon In-N-Out burger on the chain link fence.
Oh yeah.
Just to screw with people.
That's not nice.
It's hilarious.
So as of when is this dated? It doesn't matter. In-N-Out said this week it is relocating its headquarters back to Baldwin Park in Los Angeles County to bring its West Coast headquarters team back together under one roof with that consolidation of nothing about Tennessee. Okay.
Were you implying it was something political or like the wildfires or something else?
Well, for the same reason, a lot of businesses are
Just
leaving
tax
California,
tax
probably
stuff?
taxes. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
cheaper
yeah.
to.
Okay. Oh, that's fine.
The decision comes as In-N-Out is poised to debut a new 100,000 square foot Eastern Territory office near Nashville.
Okay.
It will not be its headquarters.
Which means that's going to be their eastward expansion.
Yeah.
Likely.
That's awesome.
Go north first.
Yeah.
Go north first.
I will drive 7 hours for an In-N-Out burger. Not the fries, but the burger, yes.
Yeah.
Had it
Sorry,
once.
sorry to our friends at Grab 'em in the Brisket who swear by Whataburger, but I don't know.
I
Never
want
had
to
it.
try both. I don't think
Yeah,
it has to be
absolutely.
a this or that.
I mean,
So anyway.
in the national, like, here's the most amazing burger in the country situation. Like, we've recently got some Shake Shacks, although the one at Easton is either closing or closed.
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but like, we have Five Guys here, and so
Yeah.
Five Guys is part of that national conversation. We've had that, but holy cow, I don't want to pay $30 for a burger. So I would welcome some of the other contenders,
Bring it.
including Whataburger.
Bring it on.
Let's do
Bring it on down to Columbusville. So
Home of
yeah.
Guy Fieri. Well, this is Flavortown, my friends.
Do you feel like that's a recent thing that they've really leaned into the Fieri instead of just saying Fieri? I feel like it was
Yeah.
almost always Fieri. And it's like he must have been on Kimmel or something and said, it's actually Fieri. And now I feel like everyone says the slightly more uppity pronunciation and not
Yeah.
the other one.
It's within the last few years that, like, I automatically say Fieri now.
I instantly takes me to the, like, don't try to church it up, dirt. Like, like at some point he just decided it sounded better and said it out loud. And maybe
Yeah.
it's always supposed to have been that way, but I don't know. Feels recent.
Does feel recent.
You been having any good desserts over there, Kendall?
So apparently this was a trend that came up in during COVID that I had not heard anything about until today. We were at dinner, and the kids had asked if we could stop by a local ice cream place that just opened back up for the season. And she said no. And she said, but here's what we want to try. I want to try this at home when we get there. And that is, you take a fruit roll up and you flatten it out. You spread ice cream on top of it and then roll it back up. Because apparently it does something crazy to the texture of the fruit roll up. And I had not heard of this. Apparently it was a crazy thing for a while. And so I did that for the first time, like just a little bit ago. And that is amazing.
Yes.
Everybody, if maybe I'm the last person in the world to not try this, but if you've not tried this, you have to try it. Like, I think that restaurants need to be legitimately doing this. The way it confuses your senses is it's mind-boggling. So it gets super crunchy. It eats like a hard candy, and then the ice cream melts in your mouth, and once that's gone, it turns back into a fruit roll-up.
What?
It is, you get the crunchy, creamy experience, and then you get the fruity, gummy chew after the crunchy is over, and it's the same product doing both of those things to you, and I love it.
Look, sometimes the internet makes me sad. And then other times the internet will give you things like this.
No.
And it really just makes it worth it. And I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 9 months or a year ago. Bree saw this, but they were telling people to do it with rainbow sherbet because it just lined up with the fruit by the foot, fruit roll up, whatever it is, flavors, fruit roll up. And I tried it with the rainbow sherbet and it was really good. Like, sometimes I think, oh, I just went out to dinner. We had a really nice steak, but not like Longhorns, like even nicer. And then I just paid $12 for dessert and it was fine. And then I try like an 87-cent fruit roll up with like 22 cents worth of sherbet and go, holy crap, that was really good. And then I wonder what I was doing at the restaurant.
Like, I see no reason that, like, the fancy restaurants can't make their own fruit leather and then put their own handmade ice cream on it and then sell it for $15.
Fruit leather.
I would
Like,
I would advise
I
a
would buy
different
it.
term, but
Fruit leather is the term.
It is what it is, but let's not talk about
You
it.
guys have never heard of fruit leather?
No, is that
before?
really the term?
That's the term. That's what it
Gross.
is. Fruit leather. Look it up.
I've told this on the podcast before, but I had
And-
some hippie Sunday school teachers who used to make their own and bring it in, and it was terrible.
Oh, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. But you could make it the same thing if you're a professional.
Yeah.
What the crunchy moms try to do with their dehydrators is they just like smash up some raspberries and spread it thin on a sheet of parchment paper and throw it in a dehydrator for a long time. And it turns out that is not the fruit roll-up recipe.
Yeah. Sometimes
You need to get
all
some
those
citric acid
chemicals
in there, and yeah,
all those chemicals we're not supposed to eat just taste better. You know what I mean? Like red 40 and some
It's like
kind of
the,
acid and well,
it's like what's
but
the
it's
Dave
good.
Bargatze bit? Like all of the things that people say, "Oh, I haven't had that in forever since I was a kid," and everything that I've ever heard like that is stuff that I've had like recently.
Yeah, that's his regular diet. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Airheads are just Airheads are still around. They're actually doing pretty good. If you were wondering.
They are pretty good. Also, do any jelly beans exist that aren't just Starburst at this point? Or has Starburst really taken over? Is that the primary flavor profile of jelly beans?
Brock's jelly beans, man. I'm an old guy with my candy. We've talked about this before. I like normal, like Brock's jelly beans.
You probably like black licorice too, don't you?
I love black licorice.
Gross.
As a matter of fact.
So gross.
The black jelly beans are my favorite of the jelly beans. But anyway.
What other gross old candy do you eat?
Werther's, I
No, those aren't gross.
good and plenty. I recently shared with you guys the photo of like the strawberry candies. Did you recognize that photo? Like those?
Oh yeah.
Chocolate raisins.
Mm.
Neckos are an all-time favorite of mine.
Necco wafers. Blah.
Yeah, I love Necco wafers.
It's chalk dust. They're
Bit of honey. I like bit of honey quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot
you
of
are a 40-year-old
clove
man.
flavored gum from Cracker Barrel. I love that stuff.
You do butterscotch, but not the good ones, like the really cheap ones in the yellow plastic.
Are there good ones? I do, but is there a difference between like
what is Werther's? Is that butterscotch or caramel?
I think that's caramel.
I'm in the Midwest. It's caramel. Some people might say caramel. I'm thinking of the really shiny yellow, crappy wrapper butterscotch.
Yeah, I like butterscotches for sure.
I like butterscotch flavor, but I don't the crappy candy. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I mean I like new stuff too, but I mean I'm a sucker for the old thing.
You probably like chocolate sauce too, don't you, old man?
That's where I draw the line.
This is Kendall. This is your face on these butterscotch right here.
It absolutely is.
That's just you with your newspaper and your It's So Honey.
I just cleaned up this room. Now I want to sit and read the papers.
I'm treating myself. I just turned out green in my clean to dirty ratio, and I want to enjoy a Necco wafer from time to time.
Yeah. Oh man.
Hey, I've converted my kids into some of this stuff. So
That's
they all
awesome.
like Neckos, and they also I've got one kid who loves black licorice, and so he's my black licorice buddy.
Well,
Speaking of kids, you ever notice they have tunnel vision? What's that about?
all right. Example. I need a story.
Kendall has
Not
one.
that I have a great. Corey's getting this off of a note. It's something that I put there a long time ago, and now I don't remember what this story was.
Just ready to check the box on covering this story, huh?
But how about okay? I'm going to take this angle. Speaking with the old guy candy that I've passed on some of these things to my kids. What about this? What are some things that you have noticed that your kids do or are like in their character that you're like, oh my gosh, I see that in myself, and I don't necessarily like it. For example, I feel like my wife and I were talking about how maybe this is more of a male trait. Corey, I know you have talked about the idea of like all in or nothing. Like if I get into a thing, I want all of the thing. I want to spend all the money. I want to buy the right stuff. Recently, for one of my kids, and it's been a list of things for my kids, but one of them has been yo-yoing. He decided he was good. There was a friend at school who's into yo-yos. He thought it looked really cool. He wanted to get into yo-yos, and having like the $3 Duncan yo-yo from the toy store is not what he wants. He like wanted to go on Amazon and buy his own yo-yo, saved up his money, used his own money to buy like a fancy yo-yo that has like switch out bearings and came with multiple strings and has a case, and it even came with a special glove. And like and he's like new to yo-yoing, and this is what he wants to do. And since he was willing to spend his own money, we don't always let them spend their own money on whatever they want, but in this case we did. And he's really been into yo-yo for a while. I've seen it dwindle over the past week or so, which shows you what we already know, right? But have you experienced that in your kids? Is it maybe more in the boys or girls, or are there other things that you look at your kids and be like, you got that from me and I am sorry?
All the time. Yeah, the most recent, and it's funny because Sherry just like, yeah, revealed that I leave a trail. That's Lily. And the term we use with her is tunnel vision. She gets so fixated, especially when like crafting or making things. So like there's one within one. So she's all about the show Arcane that I talked about last week. We had told her about it a while ago. It wasn't the right time. She got into it and she really got into it. She's looking up fan art. She's downloading the music from the show. She's doing her own fan art. And now she's making a prop helmet of one of the characters. While making the prop helmet out of paper mache, she's like destroyed the dining room. She's made a huge mess with the orbital sander in the garage. Like, all she wants to do is get to the point with the helmet where she's painting it and doing the fun designs on it. That's all she can see. And everything else, how she talks to people, walking from room to room, the messes she leaves, that it's just like, let's get to the final product. I'm very much that way. That's just one of many examples. But like going hard into a show. So like, this is where I relate with Chris D'Elia. He'll watch a documentary on something. Documentary's over. There's no more content on that documentary. And we'll do like a 4-hour deep dive on YouTube researching the topics brought up in the documentary. And like, what did that person, what is the follow-up? Has there been an interview with them since? Like you're just going all in on that thing that you're excited about. So yeah, I think that regularly in different ways with each of my children.
When I was a kid, people would frequently say I would be in my little hubble bubble, which I think was just a nice way to say he's not paying attention and is totally oblivious to everything around him. Maybe that's a lot of kids, but apparently it was enough of a thing that I had a term. I feel like that might apply to my daughter, and I'm so sorry. And also, I don't know if this is just a Midwesterny kind of thing to say or if lots of people say this, but when you have a tendency to feel hot more often or cold more often, we would say in our house, runs hot or runs cold. Like I run hot. I tend to be hot more often than not. So I often probably don't dress to the weather because I run hot. So it might be 32 degrees and I have flip-flops and shorts on with a t-shirt and a coat, and I'm going to go out that way because I might feel hot even the whole trip out. It's not like I often go out and regret it either. I rarely regret how I dress for things in terms of being hot or cold. My daughter is definitely that way, where she runs hot like me. And so it's like any opportunity to wear shorts and a t-shirt is absolutely, she's gonna want to do it. Or like lighter PJs at night and not heavy warm PJs. And I don't know if that will help prepare her for life or not, but it could be bad. So TBD on whether, I'm ashamed or sorry for her in the future, but we'll see.
There's no shame in, wearing sandals, shorts, and a t-shirt with a coat on when it's a Saturday and you got to run to the post office and get
All
gas.
right.
You dress how you want to dress, dang it, because I have to do this thing.
At
Yeah.
least I can control something about my life.
Yeah.
Because this
I made
whole day was ruined at 9
day.
a.m. when
I
I
made
was told I had to do this before Betty bed.
Yeah. I made a rule a long time ago with flip flops in the winter. You can still wear flip flops in the winter as long as snow doesn't fall into the flip flop where your foot is when you step in it.
There you
So
go.
if it's thin enough that the sole of the flip flop is thicker than the snow, you're good
And
because
even then, if you're going to be in the car soon enough,
it'll warm up. You just turn
Yeah.
the heat on if you need a little warmth. So God forbid I ever break down somewhere and I'm stuck outside. But for now, knock on wood, I get to be nice and cool.
Well, I was thinking about more, but that's like more of a nature nurture question with our kids doing things that we do. So like sarcasm, facial expressions, things like that. So,
you
but
know,
yeah,
I had to concede eventually of growing up. I wasn't allowed to say the word fart. And I don't know how many, like we were trying, I don't, probably for the sake of our own parents, just being around grandparents, that'll just be easier if you don't use the word fart because my parents and her parents probably wouldn't like to hear our kids use the word fart. And so we were using the word toot. And but I mean, like fart jokes are fart jokes. It's funnier for me to like at some point I just had to concede that like fart is something my kids say, and that's okay now. And maybe it's different when they're 3 versus when they're 9. I have no idea. But that realization came to me that like I'm going to stop fighting the fart battle. And because I'm not going to stop saying fart. Like
we know what happens when you hold in a fart, and
exactly.
your tummy doesn't feel good.
It's
So
you could
sometimes
die. You
You
could
need
die.
to let it out.
Yeah.
You need to let it out. Do we want to
That is
run
not-
through streaming real quick?
This has been such a fun one. I'm okay if we end where we are because it's been fun,
Yeah.
but I'd also be happy to talk about streaming. So I could go either way, but this also feels like we've had a great conversation.
We have, and I'll just throw one in because we talked about it last week, and I'm
Yeah.
the only one who didn't watch the Oscars. I watched the whole Oscars. I thought Conan was great. We've said that we use the Oscars to discern sort of what we want to watch, like for that next year. Nothing about any of the major winners looked interesting to me at all.
Well,
Amelia Perez, not interested. Honora, not interested. Like so many of the other big winners, I was like, meh. Like none of them looked like anything I would ever normally watch. I
Yeah.
probably still will because I feel like if it gleaned that much praise, like there's got to be something endearing about it or a good story in there somewhere. But just on the reading books by their cover, I'm like, meh. Did you guys feel that way with a lot of the winners?
So the only one that I really looked into all that much was Honora, because of the specific amount of proclaim that Honora received
Yeah.
during the Oscars on something that I had not heard of. And from what I can tell, and the thought crossed my mind, if anybody is wondering how the world of Hollywood is doing after after during the advent of Jeffrey Epstein's connections and Harvey Weinstein's history is going, they just a porn movie just won the Oscars. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm hearing about. You have to be really okay with nudity for like the bulk of the film. And like grotesque nudity also is what I kind of heard. So that said, probably don't watch it with your kids around, or your parents. So because that'll probably get awkward. I'm sure it's all artfully done. That's not me knocking the film whatsoever. But it is me saying, yeah, maybe I don't want to see that one.
I did think that the opening was perfect. Because Wicked was up for so many awards, having Ariana Grande sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, only to be followed by Cynthia Erivo singing Moving On Down the Road from The Wiz. Like, this was the perfect time in history to have that moment. That was so awesome. and they both crushed it. Yes, I'm worried about their. They need a burger from In-N-Out or five, and I think they are like. I told Lily, I was like, is Ariana like really out of touch? She seems like so flighty and spacey now in interviews. And they've talked about like the touring grind, like that she's had to go through, like the PR grind. She just seems like, yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah. Even on the red carpet, I was like, whoa. But then on SNL, she like crushed.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced because they basically were releasing two movies 2 years in a row, a year apart, plus all the press junket stuff. They've got to just be pumping themselves full of like Red Bull and whatever to just get through the days. It's got to be it. They've got to just be exhausted.
Yeah, fair.
And I'm not claiming that like doing what they do is harder than like dirty job style, blue collar, whatever. But for them, based on what they normally do, it might be. Although she tours a lot, so like you'd think there'd be some of that built up, but like it's got to be that just constantly flying, constantly dancing, singing, making essentially two movies. I don't know. I hope they're okay. I'll say that.
Yeah. Anyway, it was great. It was fun to watch. It was long. I liked Conan's joke about like what you're experiencing now, audience, is what's the syndrome called when you're falling in love with your kidnappers? A Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a good show, but I just wanted to comment on that. We can talk about the rest of the stuff we're streaming next week. Thank you all for hanging with us for an hour. It was really fun. I was talking to some new friends about our podcast, and they're like, "What's your premise?" And it reminded of what brings me and us such joy about this podcast, and it's that people feel like they're just hanging out with us when they listen. One of the best compliments we've ever been paid is that somebody said, "I was speaking out loud, responding to things you guys were saying because I forgot I wasn't hanging out with you." And that's the best. That's what we hope we bring you each week. So thanks for listening. Thank you, Artius Man, our sponsor. If you want some amazing men's grooming products, go over there, Artius Man, ARTIUSMAN.com, and use promo code The Middle at checkout to get 25% off your order. And we appreciate you, Jeff, and your sponsorship. Also, we don't shout him out enough. Thank you, Samson111, who recently got married. Thank you for that awesome intro. We appreciate your musicianship, and we love that tune. That's why we haven't changed it. So anyway, thanks all. It was fun hanging out, and we will catch you next Wednesday. I'm probably going to dread it a little bit when we record this episode and next episode of From the Middle. Bye.